The city never slept, but it did keep secrets. At least, that's what Detective Ryan Mercer had learned after 10 years in the force. Secrets were currency here, traded in hushed conversations in dimly lit bars or whispered through phone lines just before they went dead. It was a Tuesday night when the call came in, a body found in an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Mercer didn't expect anything unusual. He'd seen his fair share of overdoses, gang hits, and desperate men who had run out of options. But the moment he stepped inside, he knew this wasn't just another routine case. The body lay in the center of the vast, empty space. A man in his 40s, well dressed, but not in the way that screamed wealth, just enough to suggest he was careful about appearances. His throat had been slit, clean and precise. No signs of struggle, no obvious clues. But there was something strange. A single playing card rested on his chest, the King of Spades. Mercer crouched beside the body, his partner, Detective Julia Carter, standing behind him, arms crossed. "Card game's gone wrong?" she muttered. Mercer didn't smile. He reached for the card with gloved fingers. "This was placed here deliberately." Carter sighed. "Great. Another one of those cases." They both knew what she meant. Every once in a while, a killer came along who didn't just kill. They played games, left messages. Thought they were clever. These cases were the hardest to crack because the murderer was already 5 steps ahead. The autopsy didn't reveal much beyond what they already knew. The victim, Charles Dunham, had been dead for about 6 hours before he was found. No defensive wounds, no drugs in his system. He hadn't been robbed either. His wallet was still in his pocket, cash untouched. Mercer and Carter started with the basics. Dunham's home, his work, his family. He lived alone in a modest apartment downtown. A financial consultant, well respected, no criminal record. His office colleagues were shocked to hear he was dead. A few mentioned he'd been acting strange lately, paranoid even, but no one knew why. It wasn't until they checked his phone records that they found the first real lead. In the past 2 weeks, he had made multiple calls to the same number, a burner phone. The last call had been just an hour before his estimated time of death. They traced it to a location near the warehouse where his body had been found. Mercer drove, Carter navigating. The address led them to a rundown motel, the kind where people checked in with fake names and never left a tip. The manager barely looked up from his newspaper when they flashed their badges. "Room 214, he grunted. "Paid cash? No ID." They climbed the stairs, Carter drawing her weapon. Mercer knocked once. No answer. A second knock, louder this time. Still nothing. Mercer nodded and Carter kicked the door open. The room was empty but not unused. A stale smell of cigarette smoke clung to the air. The bed was unmade, a half-eaten sandwich sat on the nightstand, and on the desk there was a deck of playing cards. Mercer walked over, flipping through them. One was missing. The King of Spades. A cold feeling settled in his gut. The killer had been here. Maybe even recently. Carter checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Nothing. Whoever had rented the room had left in a hurry. They bagged the deck of cards and searched the place. But aside from a few receipts from a nearby diner, there wasn't much to go on. The receipts were dated 2 days ago, paid in cash. The security cameras at the diner might have caught something, so they made it their next stop. The diner was a relic from another era, all chrome and faded red leather booths. The waitress on duty was a woman in her 60s with tired eyes and a sharp memory. When they showed her the receipts, she nodded. "Yeah, I remember him. Didn't say much, just sat in the corner and drank coffee. Paid in cash, left a decent tip." "Did he meet anyone?" Carter asked. The waitress shook her head. "Not that I saw, but he was watching the door like he was waiting for someone." They checked the security footage. The man in the motel room had worn a dark hoodie, keeping his face angled away from the cameras. But when he turned to leave just for a second, they saw his face. Mercer froze. He knew that face. "Derek Lawson?" he said, his voice tight. Carter frowned. "The Derek Lawson?" Mercer nodded. Derek Lawson had been a name whispered in the department for years. A hitman, but not just any hitman, one with a signature. He left playing cards on his victims, but no one had ever caught him. If Lawson had killed Dunham, it meant something bigger was in play. Hitmen didn't choose their targets. Someone had ordered the hit. The next question was, Who? They ran Dunham's financials again, looking for anything unusual. One transaction stood out, a withdrawal of $50,000, just 3 days before his death. A lot of money to take out in cash. The withdrawal had been made at a local bank, so they pulled the security footage. Dunham had looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder. He left the bank with a duffel bag, but the footage revealed something else. A man standing across the street, watching. A man Mercer recognized. Not Lawson. Someone worse. Martin Hayes. A name that made even seasoned cops uneasy. Hayes wasn't just a criminal. He was the kind that never got caught. He ran a vast network of illegal businesses, but nothing ever stuck to him. No witnesses, no evidence. And now he was connected to Dunham. They went to Dunham's apartment again, this time searching more thoroughly. In the back of his closet, taped to the wall, they found what they were looking for. A flash drive. Back at the precinct, their tech team decrypted it. The files inside detailed offshore accounts, money laundering, and names. Big names. People in politics, law enforcement, and organized crime. And there, right in the middle of it, was Martin Hayes. Dunham had been laundering money for Hayes. And he'd been gathering evidence. The $50,000 must have been hush money or an escape fund. Either way, it hadn't worked. Now they had proof. Enough to bring Hayes down. But it wouldn't be that easy, because the next morning, when Mercer walked into the station, he found an envelope on his desk. Inside was a single playing card, the Ace of Spades, and a note. You're next.